Pepsi Music Lab Summit. I'm your host, Swaggy C. Let's talk get into the bag and monetizing your work. The process by which artists made money from their work remained pretty much stable and relatively easy to understand for an entire century. But over the past 2 decades, with the uptick of streaming and the decline of physical formats, just about every aspect of the process has changed. And that change isn't slowing down either. To help us tackle the complex matter of monetizing your work, we have 2 panelists who have invaluable experience with bridging the gap between artist communities and the money that their work deserves. Today, we have Chase Cheatham, who is an integral part of label partnerships team at TikTok, where she works as the liaison between artists, managers, and labels to execute marketing initiatives and assist in artists on growth platform strategies. Prior to that, Chase was the sponsorship coordinator at Live Nation, where she's worked with some of the biggest brands in the world to help create impactful music marketing campaigns. She also worked at Hitco, an indie label where she was a key player in pushing St. John's Roses to #1 4 years after its initial release. And we also have Drea Jackson, who is an artist development and relations manager at SoundCloud. There, she is responsible for building and maintaining SoundCloud's relationships with artists, managers, producers, and agents, as well as educating the creator community on how to best utilize SoundCloud and its artist services to build and grow their careers. Prior to SoundCloud, Drea was a strategist on the brand partnership team at SoundCloud and Pandora, where she crafted narratives and sales strategies for potential partnerships. In addition to a professional role, Drea also helps lead Clouds of Color, one of SoundCloud's diversity resource groups. Okay, listen, I'm very excited for our guests today. I want to say welcome, ladies. Chase and Drea are here. For those who don't know, because a lot of people think they know, but they have no idea. What is monetization exactly? Maybe Chase, you can weigh in first.
Monetization just means how can you get money off of the content as an artist that you're putting out, right? Whether that's music, whether that's video content, and how do you really make money off of it, right? No one wants to work for free. I know artists don't. And so I think that's what we're here to kind of talk about.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Drea.
I was going to say, to echo off of Chase, making money off your content obviously comes with rules and regulations behind that, especially when you are a rights holder of that content or there might be multiple rights holders of that content. So a step further is making sure that the monetization of your music represents whether or not you actually own the rights behind all of your music. So it's almost like a status. Is your music monetizable? AKA, is it eligible to receive? Are you going to be responsible for paying that out to all the relevant rights holders?
And Drea, most are familiar with SoundCloud. If they're not, they're gonna learn today. All right. So, a lot of artists, they do have their music already up, and if not, they're planning on putting their music up on the SoundCloud platform, which I think is a great tool for artists to gain exposure, to get your music heard. But how does an artist monetize specifically through SoundCloud?
Well, it's actually really freaking simple. You essentially just sign up for our monetization program called Premier Pro. And then there is another, I guess I'll get into the 2 different ones. So there's Premier Pro, right? Premier Pro is essentially the very first starting block of your monetization journey on SoundCloud. You sign up for it, and as long as you have 500 eligible streams that month, you're qualified for the program. And when you go into each of your tracks and you edit your track, you can edit your track, you can type the metadata in, put all the information in there. Then there's a tab called monetization. You go to that tab, just click monetization on, and it gets turned on. Now, a few more details are in that tab, and maybe we'll get into that in a second, but it's pretty self-explanatory. But essentially, once you sign up for that Premier program, you're signing a contract that says that anytime that you elect monetization for a track, you own and or are responsible for the licensing and the ownership paperwork for that particular song or particular piece of work. You put it that way.
Right. So,
that's the first layer of it. Then we have also a distribution platform called Repost. So the main difference between those 2 is that the Premier Pro program is distributing or / monetizing directly onto SoundCloud, only SoundCloud. But because we are this global ecosystem for creators, most recently, well, not that recently anymore, but I think over about 2 years ago, we acquired Repost, which is our distribution program. And you can monetize your music to all DSPs, not only just SoundCloud, but Tidal, Amazon, et cetera, et cetera. I won't go into all of them, but the main reason why you may think like, or you may see that there's two of them is because honestly, Premiere Pro started first. It was the first one. Then we're like, you know what? It'd be great if creators came to one place and could do everything at once. So if you started out on Premiere Pro, great. If you want to go to repost, great. That's awesome because you have a little bit more, flexibility in that. But it all depends on where you are in your creator journey.
And that's something that obviously it's always going to be ever changing. So you got to do what probably fits best for you and for your brand. And Chase, you briefly mentioned, brand partnerships, and that's how a lot of these TikTok curators are, monetizing right now. But what do you think emerging artists should know about partnerships, and how do you think an emerging artist can kind of land a partnership?
Yeah, I think on TikTok, again, it all starts with the content, right? Are you making good content? And the content is what we're usually seeing is what drives the music, right? And so first things first is focus on making good content that people want to see. With TikTok, there are no gatekeepers, right? There are no people that say this is hot or this is not, right? It really leaves it all up to the community. So it's every single person from an emerging artist to an established artist has the opportunity to gain new fans each and every single time they post, right? Because every single time you're posting, you have the ability to reach a new fan base. And so I think it's about starting with the basics, right? What does good content look like and relatable to your music, right? Because as an artist, you want to push your music and you're pushing it through this short form content. And so I think I can quickly just state some easy best practices that I think that all emerging artists should just really lean into. I would say making sure that you're posting at least 3 times a week, right? Getting that consistency going, making sure that you're continuously feeding that algorithm with new and exciting content. Another thing I would say is making sure that it is vertical, right? Don't just repurpose content that you may have found on Instagram in a square format, because the community knows, right? They see content that's just repurposed and they're on to the next thing. It's like, though this isn't for, TikTok, I can go find this elsewhere. So it's about making content for the platform, making sure that, you're feeding your audience. We also have an analytics tool, and if you go on the creator backend, you can kind of use that tool to see, how much of these videos is my audience really watching. If my video is 1 minute long, but I'm losing people after 30 seconds, maybe you can use that as a way to make some changes to your content, right? Focus on the things that your community wants to see. So yeah, I would say focusing on your content, making sure that it's good, sharing it with your friends. As you start to make good content, as you start to get up your following, then of course that's when the brand partnerships come into play. In that regard, what I would do is easily just look up other creators, other artists that are just like you, right, in the same lane. Who are they partnering with? And then trying to figure out who can you contact from those, artists, right? If I see someone working with Pepsi and I'm like, oh, Pepsi's into, these type of artists. Let me reach out to Pepsi and see if maybe they would be interested in me because we're making similar content. So just focusing really on that content piece is key.
Yeah, I feel like I'm always trying to figure it out, and sometimes people might think that there's an age limit on these platforms, whether it's TikTok or whether it's SoundCloud. And to be honest, I feel like I've seen just about every age, every age flourish to some degree on both platforms. But specifically, Jay, on SoundCloud, you guys have a plethora of artists that even me being in radio, I've searched for a lot of upcoming artists or who's up next or something that I think could play on the radio, from Lil Uzi to Lil Yachty to Playboy Cardi. That list just continuously goes on. And those are artists who explode and they go on to major mainstream success. But not every artist is a mainstream major artist. So for those type of artists, those artists who are a little bit more low key, maybe a little bit more underground, do you think that SoundCloud, can still be a sustainable source of income for those type of artists as well?
It absolutely can. And it's funny you say like those artists exploded. I'm gonna put it to you this way. There's always a slow burn for every single artist. And if you didn't know, it's probably because you weren't on SoundCloud when they first uploaded their first track, you know?
Right.
Like there's artists on there that have the tracks on there from like 8, 9, 10 years ago. And you wouldn't know until they actually blew up maybe 4 years after that. But speaking, or to answer your actual question, yes, it is a sustainable place for you to have that community, for you to build that fan base. If anything, it's probably the best place for you to really start. Because on SoundCloud, we like to coin ourselves more so of a social media platform than an actual DSP. Now, clearly we have streaming, you know, right? But like you can DM on there, you can like and repost and share your own captions or feelings towards the songs that you're reposting. You can communicate with other creators, other listeners. You can actually see who your top fans are. Literally, I can go to the person that streams my music, or not my music, I'm not Beyonce or anything, but streams a song like over 100,000 times and reach out to them and maybe host like a little like focus group and like ask your top fans, yo, what do you think about this track I just dropped exclusively on SoundCloud? Should I release it to all DSPs? So it's more of a place where like you can, it's kind of like your sketchbook, right? It's kind of like honestly the first place where you can start your music journey and learn your sound. And because all of the interaction tools on SoundCloud can directly kind of speak into a type of engagement you're getting, say you put a song out and it's like R&B, but you don't normally put out R&B, and all of a sudden your streams just go up because people are like, whoa, I like this new sound. Or if it's the opposite, it goes down. Then you're like, you know what? My audience doesn't like how I tried to sound on that track, or they love how I tried to sound on that track. Now maybe I put out a new R&B focused like EP or project or something.
Right.
It's just your testing grounds. So you can do all of that on SoundCloud. And then with our fan power royalty structure, it's even more beneficial to have those interactions on the platform because you can essentially game or make money off of that direct interaction from the people that are listening to your music the most, streaming your music the most, and engaging with you the most. So long story short, yes. And a lot of artists are on SoundCloud and don't know what they're doing on SoundCloud until after they blow up. But I'm here, we're here, Chase here, Swaggy, you have us here so that people know now how to start and how to make the most of it when they first upload that first track.
It's interesting that you mentioned, like, you know, sometimes it is a slow burn and maybe you were not there for, you know, that artist who uploaded their first track. And I could think back to when I was like listening to her, you know, somebody like her, and she was present on SoundCloud for a long time, you know, before anybody knew literally who she was. So can you give an example of some of those slow burning artists?
SZA. SZA's one. NLE Choppa's one as well. I would say like more so like the newer artists that are coming up. You might have heard of Baby Santana. Yeah, Young Fazo, So Fago. One thing I'll mention about SZA though is that SZA is one of those artists that she's one of our legacy artists. We call her a legacy artist, but she still goes and taps into that day one SoundCloud base. And she'll drop like, you know, random Lucy's here and there just for us. And I'm saying us because I'm one of them. Just for us, but like just seeing how that artists can still have that relationship with SoundCloud no matter where they are in their career is really, really meaningful, right? Because it's just another like avenue for you to have some engagement and some more not brand loyalty, but well, essentially you are a brand. So brand loyalty.
Right. And you know, sometimes and for Chase, for you, we see TikTok, you know, a lot of whether they are creators or artists be extremely successful there. You know, somebody that instantly pops into my mind is Coyle Ray. You know, she loves some TikTok, man, and she'll let you know it like, I'm going to the top of the charts. I don't care what you have to say. But do you feel like, you know, that level of success, it correlates across, you know, the other platforms as well? Do you see that? Or do you feel like, you know, TikTok is actually that place where they thrive?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both, right? I think even going back to Drea's point of artists posting on SoundCloud, there's so many artists that I work with that they'll be like, I posted this sound on SoundCloud years ago, and now it starts popping off on TikTok years later, right? And so there is so much synergy between TikTok and every other platform, I think, in the music ecosystem. Coi Leray is a prime example of that, right? She has really made TikTok a part of her daily life, right? It feels native to her. It feels like she's being authentic to herself. And that's the main thing about TikTok, right? It's made for all ages and all communities, but it's about being authentic. Because the minute the community sees that you're just trying to get on platform to get another hit or get on platform to have a viral sound, that's when it doesn't work, right? It's about really being true to yourself. And that's where you see Coi really thrive, right? She's at backstage of shows, getting little baby to kind of lean into the trend with her. I'm sure we all saw that video. She's also teasing sounds. So Twin and she teased, I want to say 3 months before it actually came out, to Drea's point, just testing it out, seeing what her fans like. And after, those 2 months, it got over 1 million creates before it was even released. So of course, when that sound came off, when it actually released, that's when we saw it kind of explode everywhere, hit Billboard charts. And she's continued to do that with pretty much every sound she's put out so far. So I think taking a page out of her book is making it a part of your life, right? Like, what are things that you naturally do every day? If you're an artist and you're in the studio, what does that content look like? If you are, hanging out with your friends, what does that look like? How did these sounds come to be, right? How did Little Baby and Coi Leray link up, right? I like to think about TikTok as behind the scenes, right? Whereas maybe other platforms you want to show picture perfect look, right? It's like, what does the behind the scene of your life kind of look like? And that's TikTok.
Like your B-roll.
Yeah, your B-roll, right? You really get into the nitty gritty sometimes on TikTok. And that's what I love about it too, because you see artists in ways that you don't usually see them, not being done up without any makeup, maybe in the crib, just chilling, cooking, doing things outside of their normal life, which is dope. But something that, people always love and they try to attend as much as possible are live performances, or whether that's virtually. So do live performances exist on your guys' platforms? And if so, how were they, executed?
So on SoundCloud, because it is open audio, we can literally record this right where we are recording this and put this up there now as a podcast or as a living, body of work up there. So yes, you can upload live performances there. And what was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
And how are they executed? So I understand maybe capturing a live performance and putting it out there like that, but is there any aspect where it's like live,
Oh, no, we don't have a way to cast like an actual live performance no, we don't have that. I think TikTok does though.
Yeah, Chase.
Yeah, on TikTok, we have a live feature where artists can go live. We definitely encourage artists to go live. And again, because of the algorithm, you can reach new fans each and every time. I know I went live last week to test out a new feature and I had 150 people watching me. And I was like, oh no, like X is out. But it really helps in terms of discovery on platform. And TikTok has really made music discovery huge, right? On platform. And I think live is definitely a feature all artists should lean into, especially as they're kind of building up their profile and looking to gain new fans.
Yeah. Drea, do you think you could weigh in a little bit on like what a distribution platform is? Because some people, they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to get their licensing right. They're trying to, own these records, whether it's a TuneCore or DistroKid. So maybe you could give us a little insight for the artists who have tuned in.
Yeah, so a distribution platform is essentially, sometimes they're self-service, sometimes there's a little bit more of like an account manager associated with them, but it's a platform that literally spits out your music to all of the DSPs. I know I've said that before, but like that's really what it is. And so when you sign up for a DSP, think of it like, you're looking at your check boxes. Do you want to send your music to SoundCloud? Do you want to send your music to Amazon, Apple, et cetera, et cetera? You check the boxes that you want. Now, I think there's different payment structures for how many that you're distributing to or how many you select in that checkbox frame. But that's really what it is. And all distributors assign your tracks an ISRC code too. I think that might be something that catches people up. I don't want to say the acronym and get it wrong. It's like international something, international standard recording code. There we go. But that's essentially your track's like social security number. So every time you put a track out there in the atmosphere and you shoot it out to all these DSPs, we have to know exactly like, not we, because I'm not in the back end counting this up, but like we want to know like the metadata behind the track and like who's on it, writers, producers, et cetera. All of that is captured kind of within that like ISRC code. And so when you're distributing, like it can get tracked on all the different platforms that it's sitting on.
Included. Yeah.
TikTok included. Oh yeah. Okay. I didn't know there was distro to TikTok. Yeah. So TikTok.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, we didn't know that either. See, everybody is learning right now.
Yeah.
Now, does signing up for any of those type of platforms interfere with monetizing?
Answer that, no, it does not interfere with your monetization. Remember, monetization is essentially just like the contract you sign when you say that you want to distribute your music. So when I was saying earlier, Premiere Pro on SoundCloud is the one where you just directly distribute your music to SoundCloud. That word distribute is a little tricky there because on SoundCloud, you just manually upload, unless you're working with a higher tier distributor like an Orchard or et cetera. I will not go all the way into that. But for the self-service tools like TuneCore or DistroKid, that don't automatically transfer over or don't automatically distribute to SoundCloud. That's why Premiere Pro is important and or repost. But once you say, I want to distribute my music, that's you saying, I want to make sure I own all the rights to it and or responsible for the licensing and everything to attest to that.
Yeah. Do you feel like, Drea, independent artists might run into some complications? It's a lot of music on SoundCloud. Seen a lot of samples, a lot of people try to get around certain things. So what issues have you seen, artists run into on SoundCloud?
That's the biggest thing, samples. And I'm gonna use this example because it's something that TikTok has kind of funneled to SoundCloud a little bit. Mm-hmm. I love all these new drill reworks and, taking like Mario Kart and making it drill and all that stuff. But like those samples are really expensive samples. And then also in general, like unless you have the right team behind you as an independent artist, or unless you're part of a larger ecosystem, maybe a label or something that can like really kind of like secure all that stuff for you, you can't claim the rights to that music. So if you go and check that monetization box, when technically you don't own that, content, you could get flagged for it and, or, it just will put you in a position where you're not eligible to make the money from those streams. So I see that mistake a lot. And while I love those tracks, like I said, it still does, those tracks get a lot of traction on the platform. Like I've seen them go from like 0 to like 1.75 million streams on SoundCloud within a week. They're causing a lot, but like you're not able to make as much money off of them. But there was an example by this artist named Damien, who came out with this song called Ruthless. And I don't know if you've heard it yet, but it's a very different track when you hear it. And when he first came out with it, it had a sample in it. He had to take it down and take the sample out of it. But when he took the sample out of the actual beat, which you can always do that depending on who produced it, but they had the ability to do that. When he took the sample out of that beat, then he was able to monetize that music. And now he is back up to millions of streams and making money off that. So if you could just proactively, I'm not saying try to like what I am saying actually is like proactively try to like not use as many samples unless you already have, again, the licensing and stuff in place. But the other mistake, I guess, is kind of just like not monetizing your music. And I don't want to say mistake in like a negative way, just like you're losing out a little bit. So for example, with like the drill things, I'll go back again. Even if you can't monetize them and they're still getting hella streams on SoundCloud, that's just engagement for you. That's an algorithm for you. And then also once you start building your career on SoundCloud, for example, say those listeners that heard that track, those 2 million listeners from that TikTok that blew up or whatever, we can work with you depending on what level you are in your career. Artist relations can work with you on getting you a push notification or something that you can send out to those listeners that listen to, say, more than 30 seconds of that track in the last 180 days. So while you could make money off that, you can now maybe put out a follow-up with an original body of work and push that to your listeners or your fans and kind of leverage that, exposure to then drive revenue for a track that you can actually claim it on.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so many gems. Oh my goodness, Chase. I always wondered how these sounds work specifically, on TikTok. And I hear so many different sounds and just being like a music head and then seeing how things are being flipped and remixed. And I'm like, how are they doing this? Where are they coming from? How do those sounds work for you guys on that side?
Yeah, so on that side, it's just TikTok is a place for creativity. A duet is a feature that you may have seen where artists are duetting with each other to make sound, to make real live songs on TikTok and then go and put it out through a distribution company. So the last artist that I've seen do this was Russ. He recently did this, was duetted by a random fan that was on TikTok and then was able to put it out that next week.
Hmm. It's very interesting, the two different perspectives. Like Dre and SoundCloud, like don't use remixes, like unless you have the proper licensing. And then we hear from TikTok who's like, yeah, do it all, put it all in the pot and mix it up.
Let me clarify, Swaggy. So
Yeah.
I'm saying that so that like another reason why monetization is so personal to me is because every time I'm working with an artist to get them playlisted, I can't playlist you until you're monetizable. So like I'll see something going crazy on the charts, like Ruthless, what I mentioned. And I'm like, Damien, we can't playlist it. They're like, oh, can I get on a playlist? It's going crazy. We can't do anything until we can say that yes, the artist owns all of this and that, we're not going to get in trouble for that. Now, yes, you can obviously like live on SoundCloud without monetization and you can do your remixes and blah, blah. Again, it's your sketchbook. Have fun. But right. I think I was speaking more so from the perspective of like music marketing and like how most of my job is based on like helping artists break through the noise of SoundCloud.
Right. No, and of course, of course. And then, we're thinking about legally too, trying to backtrack on that record. So being careful there and not losing out. We've seen that happen many times to so many artists. But it's interesting that you mentioned playlisting because, it is important across the entire music industry now. It's a little bit, it's interesting, for people to get their music out and to, continue to get ears on it. And it definitely takes things to a whole nother level. So how does playlisting work at SoundCloud now that you mentioned it?
So at SoundCloud, playlisting works and there's a two-pronged method here. Like we have a whole curation team that they are the ears of the streets or whatever respective, genre that they are responsible for, curating for. And then we have our artist relations team that is I'm not even kind of like actually digging around the platform, looking at stuff that's on the charts, looking at things that are relevant coming from TikTok, and things like that. And we can basically take all of that information in and decide, or not decide, but we pitch on the internal side, like to our music marketing team and to the curation team and say, hey, like this track was on the charts. Like maybe we should expose it to more listeners because clearly the listeners like it and we want to see that the songs grow and the artists get more support. So the curation team with their ears already curated the streets and then with their knowledge of what we pitched to them or the stories that we kind of sell them on, they take that and then they figure out what makes the most sense for the platform and for the community. But then another key thing about our playlists is that our playlists aren't broken down by genre. Well, technically they are, but like if you look at it from a macro aspect, it's broken down by like lifestyle. So like hustle is where you'll find a lot of like our rap and our hip hop focused content. Auras is where you'll find our R&B content. Global Rhythms is where you'll find Brazilian funk and Afro beats, Afro pop, all different derivatives of that type of music as well. There's a few more I'm leaving out. Shine is the pop one if you think of like shiny, ear candy. But that's how it's based off. So we have a curator for each and every one of those communities. So every day, or not every day, but every week, I go in, other relations managers go in and they pitch their stories. And then curation is like, all right, well, based on your stories and based on what I know is key to the, climate right now, this is who's going to make it. So having a relationship with someone on the artist relations team is very key to getting playlisted, just to be like, long story short, to answer your question. But then also you got to think about the fact that like, I'm more so working with the artists that are independent and that aren't signed. When you're on a label or whether it's indie or a major label, that person or that label has a relationship with someone at SoundCloud already, and they are the ones responsible for pitching your stories to the SoundCloud rep. Right. So I'm gonna always, err towards the independent side. I'm not gonna, that's just my POV, not SoundCloud's. But if you're an artist that is really trying to break out on SoundCloud, start by trying to get in contact with the artist relations manager. Now, don't go blow me up at once, y'all. But yeah, that's basically what I'm saying.
That's how you got to do it. Listen, a lot of artists are on here. Yeah, they're trying to figure it out. They want to get their music heard. They want to get it out there. And what's interesting, Chase, a lot of people, they take their talent to TikTok, and sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. But from what Dre described, there's instances where they're looking outside of SoundCloud's platform, and seeing who's hot and who's up next. Does TikTok, do they have to do that at this point, or does TikTok do it at all? Trying to see who is up next to any degree?
Yeah, of course. Similar to SoundCloud, we have a label relations team, we have an artist relations team, and then of course in app we have a trending tab. So you'll actually be able to see a chart of what's the top trending song at that moment, at any given moment. And so I believe it's like you can see from like the top 50 on the sounds page, the sounds detail page. And this is where you'll be able to go and kind of find what songs are people using. But we have an editorial team that does all the digging, right? They're constantly on the app. We have different meetings. Everybody kind of has their ears out, seeing what's trending, what's bubbling, what's hot. Because by the time the masses hear about it, right? By the time everyone else hears about it, it's already started bubbling up in app, and we're, keeping our eyes and ears open to it. But what I will say is that majority of what happens on platform for your song, it goes to how much the artist is leaned in, right? There's only so much TikTok can do, there's so much I can do. It's really about the artist leaning in, the artist making that content, the artist being consistent. It's not an easy job being an artist these days, but you really do have to kind of feed the beast.
You gotta be on point.
I would echo that 100,000%. Especially on SoundCloud, being where like you do have to do a little bit of extra work. You can't just drop your song and walk away like you can on Apple. Engaging back with the people that are commenting on your tracks, liking, reposting other artists, other creators too, just kind of like, again, warming that algorithm up to who you are so that they kind of see your song as something that artists that look like you might also want to listen to. Not look like physically, but like, from what the algorithm shows.
Yeah, and before we wrap up, Jay, I know you kind of gave us one of or some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen some artists make, but is there anything that you would want to add on to that, in terms of monetization?
From the mistakes point of view?
Yeah.
No, I mean, just always like be proactive about monetizing your music on any and every platform that you do have your body of work on. That's all I will say. Because some artists will come to me and they'll be like, hey, like my song's been out, it's been doing this. And I'm like, well, it's not monetizing. So you know that 300,000 streams you got don't really count towards anything. They're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Literally, and if I was an artist, I'll be thinking about money first, money and music. That's
trying to get to the bag.
Get to the bag. If you're making music, there's money to be made off of it.
Yeah. And Chase, do you see, any of these artists or curators, what are some of their biggest mistakes?
Not being consistent, right? I think that's the biggest thing. People think that they can just come onto the app, maybe spend some ad dollars and it'll just work, or maybe post 1 or 2 times, or trying to do things that are not authentic to them, right? They're just like, I see the kids dancing, I see this is hot. It's not just about dancing, right? That's completely a myth. That's kind of the perception that was, I want to say, a year and a half ago, right? You come onto the app authentically as who you are, right? I think trying to fit into what you perceive as what's right is where people go wrong. So I think, again, just being authentic, being consistent, making good content, making good lighting, right? And giving people what they want to see.
Yeah, authenticity, consistency, and making sure you check off that monetization box, okay? I hope everybody was able to write down and take notes on a lot of the gems that you ladies dropped today. Thank you so much, Chase and Drea, for your time and your knowledge on getting to the bag in this industry. I really appreciate it.
Oh, and also if you're an upcoming artist out there that might possibly want to reach me one day, DM me on SoundCloud. My SoundCloud is Drea Vibes, DreaVibes.
Oh, dope. Listen, be sure to visit at PepsiMusicLab.com for any updates surrounding this year's Pepsi Music Lab Summit. And of course, follow us on the socials at Pepsi and checking out that hashtag Pepsi Music Lab Summit. Thank you all so much again. It's always fun, and I'm excited to connect at some point.
Yeah, of course.
Yes,
thank you so much.
No problem.
Love being on a panel with, two amazing women. So
yeah, thank you. Likewise.
Yes.